All right. Hi, everybody. This is Tasha with Prep For It, and this is my fabulous co host, Mouse Toes from Mouse Toes channel. If you don't know her channel, go check it out. She's awesome. She's great on canning and homesteading and prepping, and just she's a wealth of information. She has a plethora of positivity.
A plethora.
A plethora of positivity. Hello, CB. Hello, Johnny, Harper Scouts Table. And we'll give it a couple of minutes before people come in. But it'll take, these notifications have gotten real weird here lately on the tubes. A lot of people are saying they're not getting notified.
This is what I've learned on that. Say that you've got a desktop, you've got a laptop, you got your iPhone, and if you use your YouTube on any of those and are not subscribed on all of them, you won't get notifications. So if one of them you forgot, right, to hit that all notifications bell, you don't get notifications, because I have gone through that for the last year and I only have a
Really?
laptop and an iPhone. Yep, that's the secret, and it is
I'll,
insane.
I'll have to double check all of them. Hey, Iva KI. Hi, Nina with the Discover Sustainable. Hope y'all are doing well. We're just giving it a couple of minutes and letting people roll in, seeing that we're live. Um, but since we are like possibly scheduled, you know, we have possible tornadoes coming our direction next week. So, it's a good time to discuss preparedness when it's regarding tornadoes. So I figured now is the time. So I went to try to find some information on the interwebs. There really isn't a lot. Hey, Bob. Hey, Kaylin. Good to see y'all. Yeah, I was really shocked at the minimal amount, even on government websites, minimal amount of information there was. So I decided, well, we need to remedy that. Um, I've lived in Tornado Alley like all my life. So I've picked up a few tips and tricks along the way. And so I think we'll get her started. Um, okay, so whether you own your own tornado shelter at your own home, or you go to a neighbor's or a friend's house or a public shelter, there's some things that you can do ahead of time to get prepared. So I'm going to give you these tips here. Okay, if you don't have a shelter, check with neighbors. I mean, look around. You can usually see if they have shelters by their houses. Typically, the shelters are by their houses. And so check with them, and just ask, hey, if there's really severe weather coming and something heading our way, can we go ahead and come over to your shelter? Um, Even if you have family and friends that live near you, but not that close, you may not have time. So it's better to go ahead and have a pre-arrangement made with neighbors or people that are really close by, because sometimes they just drop out of nowhere. So you got to keep that in mind. Okay. Um, Even my daughter, she moved up to the city, and there was a really bad storm coming, had a lot of rotation in it, possibility for really huge tornadoes. So I put out there on my Facebook with my close friends that lived up in that area. I was like, does anybody have a shelter that she can go to? Because this isn't looking good and she doesn't have a shelter at her home. And they was like, sure. Several, people said, yeah, sure. Hey, Stuart, good to see you. So it doesn't hurt to ask, especially people that you know and you trust. Is my video okay? Is my sound okay? Is it synced? Do I need to take my just put my icon on?
Your lips are moving, you're not talking, but the sound is super clear. So I
Okay,
would, I would leave your head up there. Yeah.
leave my head up here. Okay.
Yeah, leave your head on.
I mean, if it gets distracting though, just let me know and I'll put my icon on.
It's kind
And
of
just
like watching a Japanese movie, but I can hear everything that you're saying very clear. So I like it.
okay. Okay. All right. So, if you live in a mobile home or manufactured home, don't try to ride out any size of a tornado in there. If you know that a rotating thunderstorm is coming your direction, and you live in a mobile home or a manufactured home, just go ahead and leave. Hey, Mom Slayer. Hey, Raven Cat. So, yeah, don't try to ride it out. Even high winds, you don't need to be staying. You need to leave until the storm has passed. Okay, so when you're going to a shelter, put on tennis shoes or boots. Do not wear flip flops. Do not wear open toed shoes and sandals and things like that. Because even if things don't, if they're not bad on the way to the shelter, when you're coming out, if a tornado has hit nearby or directly, then there could be lots of debris. So you want to protect your feet. Okay, so no flip flops. Wear tennis shoes or boots. Um, so grab whatever you can to protect your head. Okay, so helmets, um, whether it be baseball, riding helmets for the kids' bicycles, skateboarding, whatever kind of helmets that you have for protection, have those. They do sell, if you wear caps a lot or hats a lot, they sell bump caps is what they're called. They just slide into a baseball cap or your cowboy hat or whatever kind of hat you wear. You don't see them, but they're in there and they help at least offer some protection. They're lightweight. You can keep them in your vehicle if you want, but it's something to help protect you. So make sure you have those. If you don't have anything like that, you grab cushions, you grab uh, baking pans, whatever you've got to cover your head to protect it on your way to your cellar. Because sometimes, a lot of times with a large rotating supercell thunderstorm, you have large hail in there and or things blowing debris blowing in the air. So you need something to protect yourself to when you're getting into the shelter. This would also apply like if you're taking shelter inside your home, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay.
Something oily that people can get them affordably is you've
Uh-huh.
got summertime coming up, so hit those garage sales. And people who are adults who aren't riding their bikes anymore will be selling them at a cheap price. And then you just keep those. In my case, it would be my elevator shaft. I would keep them. In your case, it would be in your storm shelter. So you had that extra helmet always where you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so let's see, where were we? Okay, wrapping yourself in a blanket. Okay, so let me go back. If you cannot leave your home, if you're having to take shelter in your home, then there's some tips here. If you don't have the best, most ideal place is the central part of your home where you have as many walls between you and the outside world. Okay, um, in a room there with no windows in it going to the outside or a closet. But if you don't have that, the old bathtub thing doesn't really apply in most modern homes anymore because, first of all, they used to have those old cast iron, you know, bathtubs that weighed like 500 pounds. In addition, the pipes were like the galvanized metal that went deep down into the ground, and now we have this lightweight plastic stuff, poly or PVC or whatever. So bathtubs are a no-no unless you live in like a really, really old house with all of that applies. So central part of your home, a hallway if you need to. Growing up, what we would do is if we saw a storm coming before we had a shelter in my mom's home, we would go ahead, we would get in the hallway before the storm came. We would have our twin mattresses. We would hunker down on the floor, getting in the lowest position, covering our heads with the twin mattress. So you want to get in the lowest position, either laying down flat or at least hunched down with your heads covered. Blankets wrapped around you is real great. It can help stop some debris that's flying through the air from cutting you. Um, it just offers you a little bit more protection. Remember, you don't have to just prepare for the high winds. But you also have to deal with the large hail, so you don't want to be near windows because debris and large hail can come through those windows and you can end up cut or injured. So just remember that. You have to prepare for that as well. Should you have an advanced warning, then go ahead and prepare yourself in advance. Like most of the time here in Oklahoma now, they're like, okay, Thursday we have a strong chance for tornadoes, so everybody be prepared. What does that mean? Have everything that you're going to need. Like for us, we have our shelter in our cellar here. So hey, Ginger Ninja. So basically, what we do is go ahead and put everything down there that would be like more last minute items. We'd put on down there, like my important paperwork I keep in here in the safe. But if I see rotating storms are going to be coming up, I go ahead and get that down in there. So that's out of the way. Double check your lanterns, all of that stuff. Make sure everything down there is ready for you for when you do need to go down. Make sure your cellars are cleaned out. That's what I did last week. It was not a fun job. It gets dusty down there, but better than going down there with a bunch of black widow spiders, okay? Which is what we have here, and brown recluse spiders. All right, let's see. You can come through. I have down on the bottom of my video in my description, there's a list. You can just, in the description of this video, you can copy and paste it onto your computer, or you can screenshot it, or whatever you need to do, or you can go get a pen and paper right now to take notes, because I have an items list that we're going to go over. All righty. Did I miss anybody, Mouse Toes, or is there any questions so far?
Nope, all good in your hood, side chat hood.
All right. Let's see. Items to go ahead and throw in there. Things like last minute items like important documents, medications, etc. Pre-test all of your electronics before you go down in your cellar. If you go down in your cellar and you're just assuming that your electronics are going to work, like a battery operated radio or your cell phone, it more than likely will not. I'll be shocked. For most people, there are some people that it does work. In our cellar, none of that works. The metal just stops anything. It's like sort of like a little Faraday cage because it's all metal. So there's just no getting out any electronic signals. So pre-test all of that stuff so that you know whether it works or not. Make arrangements prior with trustworthy family or friends or emergency personnel so that they know exactly where your storm shelter is on your property, because we have family that lives across the road, down the road. We have lots of friends and lots of friends on the emergency crew because my husband's a volunteer firefighter. Pretty much all of them knows where our tornado shelter is, and if one comes through and they can't get through to us, they know to come check and make sure there's not a tree or a tractor or something parked on top of our cellar where we can't get out, because that does happen. So let somebody know what your plans are ahead of time before you go to the shelter, if at all possible, and let them know exactly where you're going. And let's see. If you must go to a public or a private shelter off your property, like you're going to a friend or family's house, or you're going to a public shelter, you can go ahead and pre-pack many of the items on your list to ensure that, have a readiness bag for tornado readiness where you can just grab it and go to the shelter. Consider a bucket or a backpack to pack the items that you choose, and then put these in your vehicle or have them by the door ready to go on your way out. Be sure to check those shelters and ask them what their policies are on bringing pets. A lot of them don't even, especially public shelters, don't even allow people to bring their pets. Some people don't mind as long as you have them crated, or some of them it's leashed. So make sure you check ahead of time with those people to ask if you can bring your pets, what's the requirements when you bring them, and such. So just remember that. Unfortunately, if you cannot catch your animal, because sometimes they get high anxiety when they sense that storm coming and they run away, you can't get them in your shelter or whatever. Sometimes you have to make this sad choice of leaving them and just letting them run free and hoping and praying that they're okay, because you can't be fighting, to get your animal in the shelter and end up everybody dying because you're trying to get your animal in the shelter. That'd be tough because I love my fur babies, but if it's my granddaughter or my fur babies, I'm going to choose my granddaughter. Sorry. Try to have multiple routes to your shelter, because you don't know which direction, if a storm's coming from certain directions. Like normally it comes from the southwest and moves northeast here, but not always. Sometimes it comes from the northwest and moves southeast, and sometimes they come the opposite direction, believe it or not. So have multiple ways to get to shelters, or multiple shelters that you can consider going to, so that you kind of have backups. Just with any preparedness thing, one is none, two is one, so have backups. Um, and don't wait until the storm is right upon you to go to your shelter. Okay, if we see that a rotating thunderstorm is coming close to us, I get everything down earlier in the day. I get my pets ready, and we go on down to the shelter 20, 30 minutes before the first shaft of rain is going to start hitting, because I don't want to be trying to run through hail and high winds and slippery wet grass to get to my shelter. And I don't want to be trying to fight my animals last minute to try to get them in there. So if you can get to wherever your shelter is, whether it's at your home or a friend's house, if you know bad weather's coming, make arrangements to get there in advance so that you're not driving in the weather to get there. Let's see. Just because you don't see a tornado, this is another big tip. Just because you don't see a tornado doesn't mean there isn't one. Often they can be wrapped in rain. So all you're seeing is rain coming at you. You're not realizing there is an actual tornado in there coming straight for you. So, you know, don't just assume that there's not a tornado because you're not seeing one. So, just keep that in mind. And just remember again, it may be safe when you've entered your shelter, and it may not be so safe whenever you leave. So, carefully, when you're coming out of your shelter, be careful. Make sure the storm has completely passed. Sometimes it can drop multiple tornadoes out of the same storm system, or the small cloud. So you may think that, okay, this tornado passed, we're good. But a lot of times it's like a train in that rotating supercell, and one will drop, and then it'll go up, and then another one will drop from somewhere else in that storm system. So you've got to make sure all of the storm is completely passed before you come out of your shelter. Tornadoes range in size. The largest ones are EF4 and EF5. EF5 is the highest, the strongest. Um, Unless you're underground, you're more than likely not going to survive a direct hit from one of those. So if you hear that it's a massive supercell storm heading your way, a massive tornado, EF4 or EF5, those are the kind that pull the houses completely off of their foundations. You're most of the time, there's nowhere that you're going to survive in that situation. You need to get out of its path. That's the one time you need to go ahead and get in your vehicle and drive out of its path. Otherwise, don't be in your vehicle. But I'm breaking up. Clicks in my audio.
Yes, you had a little bit of
Okay,
robot
just a
action with clicking.
All right. All right. Let me know if that's better, since I changed my put the icon on.
Okay, it's gone now.
Okay. Yeah, it's just our connection, unfortunately. Okay, so have your pets collared and leashed ahead of time. If you have a high anxiety pets, it may be a good time to medicate them with CBD or anxiety meds, so they're not so stressed and they're easier to crate or get into like the shelter if needed. Because I have one dog, Sadie. She's high anxiety when it comes to storms, anyways. And we've tried to get her down, and she'll sprawl all four legs like a cat and just catch each side of the cellar. So we're trying to get her down, like it's a mess. Um, so you may have to, like I said, make a hard decision and leave them out if you can't get them in the shelter. But doing the things like giving them their medications, their anxiety medications, Benadryl, whatever it is you give them to help them be calm, um, would be probably a good idea. Let's see. Almost done. We're fixing to get to the list, guys. If you're in your vehicle and a tornado is heading towards you, stop. Exit your vehicle and get in the lowest area you can find, like in a ditch or in the tin horn, the big pipe things that for drainage. Get in something like that, and again, protect your head. You can carry those bump stops or something like that or bump caps or something like that in your vehicles as well in your emergency kit. Um, be something to consider. Let's see, if you wear a hat or a baseball cap, the bump cap is lightweight and doesn't take up much space. All right, we're through with the jibber jabbing, and now we're fixing to go into the list. Any questions or comments before I get started on that? And I'm sorry if I've missed anything on the side, but I'm just been trying to concentrate on this part. Have I missed anybody?
No, Kaylin made a good point and said culverts, known to the rest of us in the South as ditches. When you
Yep.
talked about people leaving a motorhome, and generally there's a ditch, that of course it'd be the lowest place to get. Of course,
Yeah.
Louisiana, Texas, South Carolina, check for water moccasins first. But
Well,
it
yeah,
is.
here too.
It's your only chance. And I
Yep.
like what you talked about. If you're going to a friend's shelter or you're going to a public shelter or whatever, to have that grab and go bag, you can make copies of your important papers. Like
Yeah.
your safe is going to survive anything, and the copies will suffice in an emergency. And you could have a backpack at your house back door, one in your car, and then have your copies in there.
Yeah. And another thing I found out, like when the tornado hit Elk City, which is about 45 minutes from us, 30, 45 minutes, um, I I knew a lot of people that lived in the housing area that had gotten hit, and they was not emergency personnel was not letting them in there unless they showed that they had some kind of a bill showing that that's
Mhm.
their address, things like that. So make sure you include that as well. For some people, just having that address on your driver's license, if you haven't changed your address, you need to make sure you get that done on your driver's license, folks, because you got to be able to prove that you live in that neighborhood so you can get back there, to clean up. Because a lot of
Yeah.
emergency services will cordon off that area so that you don't have looters coming through and taking things. So,
And most
um,
people don't know their VIN number, and it'll be on your auto insurance and your registration copy, because you
yeah,
don't even know where your car is, what it's buried under, or it's 3 blocks over. And the
exactly.
faster you can get your insurance claims in and go get in that FEMA line, remember when State Farm and everyone comes, even with your copies, they can pull them up. Save yourself getting a hotel quicker, in another town, transportation, that sort of thing.
Yeah, good point. Hey, BC truck, BC blades. Love it, love it, love it. And you guys got to check out the knives that he makes. Oh my gosh. I want one so bad. I want a kukri is what I want actually. I know I'm such a nerd, but I do. I want a kukri. Okay. So, let's go into safety gear. So this is your tornado item checklist. I'm not saying this is your be all do all. It definitely doesn't encompass everything. These are just things that my pea brain could think of at the time. Okay. So go back, add to it as you see fit. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So, first of all, like I said, Safety gear and tools. This is the section. Again, like I talked about, helmet, bub cap for each family member. Number 2, safety glasses for each family member. You may want to consider that, especially um, going or coming, including in your vehicle. If you get caught and there's nader heading your way, and it's got high winds, you want eye protection as well. Work gloves, because you don't know what kind of situation you're going to be coming out of, and so you may have to move items in order to get back to your home or your vehicle or whatever. So having work gloves is great. Dust masks, because I don't, some people, they take shelter in their cellars or whatever, or in their basements, and it can be real dusty. And like for me, I have asthma, so that can kick off an asthma attack with a lot of dust in the air, and then high anxiety situation as well. So those two things are not good for my asthma. Okay, whistles. Some people are like, why whistles? Okay, if you're underground and you're hearing somebody come to find you and you can't get out of your shelter, or a tornado has directly hit your home or your shelter and you're covered up in debris and emergency personnel comes, having whistles in your tornado shelter or on you whenever you go to the shelter, you can whistle and it's easier for them to locate you, or have something that you can pound on loudly. With that being said, that gets really loud, so you can put earplugs in your kit as well, and that will help protect the ears some while you're blowing on those whistles. A digging tool. You may actually have to dig your way out of certain scenarios, so some kind of digging tool might be beneficial. Of course, lanterns, flashlights, headlamps, and extra batteries for those things. Candles, matches, and lighter. I prefer not to use those in our little cellar, because if the oxygen were to get cut off, like if our air vents were to get covered, I really don't want to use those unless I have to. I will have them in there, but they eat up oxygen. So it's better to have flashlights, things like that, if at all possible. You might consider a multi-tool with screwdrivers, because what if a battery does go out of your lantern or something? You may need a screwdriver to open up the battery compartment to change out your batteries. So, battery-operated radio and extra batteries for that. Again, test it in your area, in your shelter. May not even work. In ours, it does not. So, check it. I'm working with my husband on setting up some kind of an antenna and run the wire down through the air vent, so that way maybe we can get some signal. Because you want to be able to hear when the storm's passed, and if you don't have any cell service or anything like that, you may not know if more's coming right behind it, or if it's safe to get out of your shelter. Charging cords and battery bank for phones. If your phones do work down there, or if you're using them for light, you want to have something like that, or just for entertaining the kids, if nothing else, with a couple of games that don't require internet service. Shelters. Believe me, I've spent many of an hour in shelters, and battery-operated fan and extra batteries is something that I think you should consider, especially if you start packing a bunch of bodies down in my little tin cellar. It's like a bunch of sardines down there. So it gets really hot really fast. A battery-operated fan and extra batteries is something you may want to think about having. All right, health and hygiene section. Okay, if you're stuck down there for a while, say there is a tractor parked on top of my cellar, I really don't want to have to worry about how I'm going to go potty down there if I need to potty. So, a Luggable Loo is a good idea. If you don't know what that is, it's just a bucket with basically like a specially fitted toilet seat that sits on top. Have some kitty litter and trash bags stored in that. That way, if somebody does have to use it, they have it. And have extra trash bags. That way, if somebody goes, you can dump the kitty litter over it. And If for some reason it gets full because you're stuck down there a while, then go ahead and change out the trash bags. Tie that one off and put another in if you need to. Toilet paper or wet wipes or both, you know. Um, Hand sanitizer, a first aid kit, and I would include trauma items in there and over the counter meds for pain, things like that. I know for me, whenever the storms are coming through, the pressure changes trigger migraines for me, so I like to have some ibuprofen, Tylenol, things like that in there, just in case. Um, but with the trauma kit, somebody could get injured getting to the shelter. So it's good to always have first aid and trauma kit down there. Um, hey, MCK. All right. Hand sanitizer, first aid kit. Okay, now we're on towels and trash bags to store the wet items. Say you're having to run in the middle of a storm and you're all sopping wet. You don't want to be sitting down in your shelter sopping wet. So have some towels to dry off with and some kind of trash bag to put them in the wet items in, so it'll be easier to carry up when you're done. Extra change of clothes for each person, because if they are sopping wet, last thing they want to do is sit down in the cellar sopping wet for hours on end sometimes. Um, Prescription medications and or testing supplies. If you're diabetic and you know that you've got a test, make sure you have your testing supplies, a little ice chest with your medication in it. Make sure you have your syringes. Make sure you have your alcohol prep pads, all of that ready to go. Um, for the ladies, tampons or pads for menstruation, it's something you have to consider. Make sure you have those items if you need it. And let's see. Any comments on that section, Mouse Toes? Like, or questions? And you're muted.
Yeah, I
There
had to
you are.
unmute myself. Let's see. I would say if somebody goes all PMS menstruation on me, I'm opening the lid and kicking them out. I mean, that is just okay. Let's see. The other thing was, there are people who like natural aroma. Body odor friends not welcome. A shelter is very tight, and I do not need to smell you later. But I like the items that you're bringing down, and then everyone helping bring those items out when hopefully, there's not a tractor on top of your shelter and people
Right.
can leave. And I liked your first aid, because think about it, it's easy to slip down those stairs, some good ace bandages to wrap up ankles and that sort of
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, what I do is I do a separate kit just to keep down there. And um, I keep everything in a very large ice chest. And like your towels and stuff can be vacuum sealed so that they're not getting a musty smell or whatever, and they're staying dry, because sometimes cellars and stuff kind of get kind of damp and kind of a musty smell. So you can vacuum seal those things and keep them dry, keep them fresh for whenever you're ready to use them, and just keep most of these items, other than maybe some your prescription meds, and you could have some extra stuff down there for most things. Um, but you can have all of that already. Like our large ice chest, I just slide up under the bench that's down there, pull it out when we need an item. It's extra seating if needed on the top of the lid as well. Plus, everything's contained, so it's less likely to get spiders, moisture, all of that kind of stuff to it by being in the ice chest. All right, let's see. Food and water is the next section. I got the clicks again.
Now, I
Am I
took
click?
myself off mute and it took away your clicks. So it may have something to do with me muting.
Okay, we'll just keep it up. It's all right. All right, food and water. A gallon of water per person per day. I would say have 3 days worth at least down there, just in case. In case you get stuck down there, you want to have at least 3 days worth. Um, Non-perishable foods such as peanut butter or cheese crackers, Vienna sausages, things like that that are quick, and any utensils that you might use, like with those Vienna sausages, if you don't want to use your fingers. Some gum or hard candies is also a good item to have down there, just to, if some people have are nervous, sometimes just chewing on some gum to kind of release some of that tension kind of helps keeping your mouth wet. With some hard candies is nice to have as well. Okay, next section, pets. Okay, you need to consider your pets in this too. They need water. They need food. They need bowls for their water and their food. Otherwise, how are you going to give it to them? Any medications that they might take for anxiety, pain, diabetes, anything like that. Potty pads, because they need somewhere to go too. And you can just take those potty pads and put them in trash bags. Leashes and collars, crates if you need them. Comfort items such as their favorite little toy or blankie if they're really high anxiety and you think they need it. Most of my dogs don't have anything like that, but some people's do. And of course, your essential papers, documents, and items like important documents, you can put it on a thumb drive. Insurance papers, because if your house is blown away, you need a copy of all your insurance stuff with you. Cash, because if the electronics is down and you're needing to go get fuel for a generator, something like that, you need cash on hand, right? If something hits. And then don't forget your wallet or purse, taking it down into your shelter. So that's the essential papers and documents. And then last set is just basically comfort items, like a blanket, sleeping bags. You can store those in vacuum seal bags. Pillows. You know, sometimes you're stuck down there a long time and you don't want to be, especially if you have little kids or if people that are of ill health and they need somewhere to lay, or what if they're injured? You want to have some way for them to lay down. You can do cots that are foldable cots if you want down in your storage shelter, or like we have a bench that's wide enough where we can have one person lay down on that, or a couple of people probably could. Games and cards, because if you're stuck down there a long time, especially if you have little kids, you need something to entertain them, okay? Toys, they're comfort items like a blanket or a toy. Color books and colors or washable markers. So that is my list, guys. I'm sure I probably forgot a million things, but this is just from my experience over my lifetime. You know, I'm fixing to be 50 in December, so I'm kind of, I've experienced a tornado or two. We'll just put it that way.
You
So
said 50 with some disdain.
No, I'm just saying, I'm not like just a young chicken anymore. So I've had some experience in this. I'm not saying I'm like an expert, but
It's
okay.
amazing you have that storm shelter, and that was a great video you did on it too.
Thank you. Thank you. And it actually, in that video, it looks a lot bigger than it really is. It really is small. It's small. It's like a sardine can. But
But it fit
it's
a
a
lot of
shelter.
people in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. With my husband welded those benches, those metal benches that go along the side and the back. Gosh, when he was like a teenager, before we ever met. And so, yeah, he can just I need him to go in. I actually want him to um I want him to go and on that back bench, I actually want him to make some kind of a hinge thing where it's a seat and it hinges over into a bed and rests on the two side benches on either side of it, so that it can be a wider bed if we do have to lay down more people than that. So, but another thing to consider is if you don't have a lot of seating, make sure you have some kind of foldable chairs or things like that for down in your shelter. Because it's not fun if you have to sit on the cold floor. And for your pets too, another thing I forgot to put on there was like towels or blankets for them to lay down on, because the most of the time the flooring's like really cold, and you want them to be comfortable. And it's a stressful situation. Like for my pets, they're not used to going down in the cellar and they don't like it. And so anything to give them a little bit more comfort is nice. Either Kaylin, camp chairs, and for the dogs, you could do like those little doormats. Get them cheap at the dollar store and lay those down there, where at least give them something warmer to lay on than the metal or concrete floor. So, any
If
other?
I can mention more Oklahoma tornado, remember that was so massive? And
Mm-hmm.
what people who had brand new shelters, like in their garage, and they knew that there was the GPS with the sheriff's department, but some were down there 18 hours and said what they missed most was seating, because they had to sit on the floor. You
Uh huh.
stand for a while. And it was very tiring. And even for young people, in their 30s, their back started to hurt. So it sounds minuscule, but I like the little camp chairs that Kaylin said, they're
Yeah.
just like this and they with an X on the side.
Yeah.
Anything just to get off of your feet, because most are standing on concrete and that's quite tiring and hard on your lower back.
Yeah, and I did try to take my dogs into the shelter. I tried luring them down there with any number of things, and I tell you, I don't know what it is. It freaks them out. I don't know if others are sensing anxiety. I mean, if we have the leashes on them, all of the dogs will go down reluctantly, but they'll go down except for one, and that's our little black lab mix, Sadie, and she freaks out. Like I said, she's like a cat. I mean, I keep vet wrap, so if we need to vet wrap her feet together long enough to get her down into the cellar, we will. Because I mean, it's either that or she dies. So she may have to just go through it for a minute until we can get her down there and then get it off of her and get her comfortable. But yeah, that's another thing. Some treats or things like that to have down there. So it does. Even if you have to fight them to get them down there, it's good to have some treats or something down there so that they know that they're maybe it'll help ease their anxiety a little bit. Ugly.
The ugly prepper said
Oh,
hello,
hey,
everyone. So I said hi, ugly.
welcome, the ugly prepper. Good to see you. Good to see you. Um, like I said, guys, the list for I would be happy to send my whole presentation and the list if you want me to email that to you. I'm more than happy to do that so that you can um put that in there. Um, have that printed out so you have it handy and you can go over it before storm season every year, just as a reminder, because some people sometimes forget stuff like that if they haven't been in a long time. Mom Slayer said my big dog was afraid of open stairs. Oh, I swear it's crazy the different personalities that the animals have. And y'all don't forget, if you have a cat, kitty litter box and kitty litter for them as well. If you do take them down into your shelter, you want to have a place for them to go potty too. Yeah, hammocks with hooks would be good. Our little shelter, I don't know. I mean, I guess I could have my husband weld some kind of hooks to the walls. But other than that, I just don't know that hammocks would be feasible down there. But yeah, I mean, you could do folding cots. You want at least one area where at least one person at a time can lay down. Like I said, you don't know how long you're going to be down there. People are exhausted, they're tired. Hey, Hawaii Volcano Squad, we've been down there most of the time. We're down in the storms move by quickly enough that we're in and out of it in 15 to 30 minutes. But sometimes we've been down there for hours on end. So, because there's one storm after another coming right behind each other. So, BC, that's about right. Oh my goodness. You're late, Hawaii? Yes, you are. How dare you?
Yeah.
I'm just glad you showed up, Hawaii. Happy you're here. If anybody else has any other tips, Kaylin says sleeping pad or air mattress. Yeah, that's an option. I mean, an air mattress you could blow up. You could do, like a bicycle pump and pump that sucker up if you needed to. I just don't have a lot of luck with air mattresses. It seems like every time I get one, they just develop a hole and they just end up flopping down. But yeah, I mean, there's a number of ways you could go about it, but just making sure you have some comfortable places to sit and some blankets to keep you warm, because after a storm goes through, it can get pretty cold, and especially if you've been damp a little bit, um, it's just always, and it's a comfort item too, having a blanket and being able to nuzzle up in it. No cabbage or beans in the shelter. BC, that is a really great tip, I'll tell you. For sure. So, y'all, since if you think of anything else, air filter to filter out dust, I would really love to have something to filter out the dust down in there. I'm going to have to look into maybe some battery operated air filtrations because, we don't have any kind of glow sticks and hand warmers. That's a great idea, Ginger. We don't have any kind of electric down in our cellar. So we have to go outside. It's about 10, 15 foot from the door. So it's not very far, but we have to go outside and there's no electric run to it. I would love to have electric run to it because I could actually get a phone line down there possibly and be able to plug in the laptop or whatever to see what's going, or connect my cell phone to the Wi-Fi to get a signal to check on the storms as they're going through to see if it's passed. I'd love to be able to run AC down there, but I can't afford it. I don't even have AC in my house. I just have window units that we plug in. We're in an old house. Brush comb. We were like covered in mud after we were hit. Oh, yeah. And, basic toiletry items if you need to. Like, if you're going to be stuck down there possibly for several days, you might want some deodorant for everybody. You might want some toothpaste, toothbrushes, some things like that as well. So personal care items, great point. Yeah, crayons can be used as candles, but alternate, yeah, nice. So, y'all, I was all excited. I'd been waiting until today. I was going to plant my garden and was all excited. And then I went down there where it was tilled, and there was a lot of it just as hard as a rock because we have clay and the air just dries it out. So I had to run the sprinklers on it today. And so I didn't get to plant, but it's a good thing because I found out that we may have another possibility of frost tonight. So hopefully tomorrow I can get that stuff planted. What's everybody else been up to since we have about 10 minutes? What have you been up to, Mouse Toes? You got garden going?
Yep, got our garden going. Now, when we were in the upstate or the Greenville area, South Carolina, we had clay. And the only way we could fix that was what I saw you and your husband do, which was amend in the soil.
Yeah.
Because we had to have like 3/4 more soil and compost and mushroom compost and topsoil than we did clay. But every 3 years we had to redo that when our carrots would be that deep. You know what I mean? They'd be big fatties like this. So the clay just tends to take over. But you got lucky, right, with the frost coming, and you chose not to do it because the clay was hard. That might have been God.
Yeah, probably. I'm going to add some more, like where I'm planting, I'm going to add some more potting soil and peat moss so it'll hold more moisture. And the clay is real good about holding moisture, but it also bakes in this hot oven of a environment that we live in. So, let's see. Let me see. BC is building what the snow destroyed. Yeah, you had a bunch of awnings and stuff like that were destroyed, didn't you, BC? So you're having to redo all that. And then Hawaii says this cilantro spout started tiny size cilantro leaves. Yay! It's always a good feeling, like whenever you've planted seeds and you're hoping they take off and you've kind of nurtured them and watered them and you're in there checking them all the time. I'm so mad because I hauled all of my plants down to the garden because I thought I was going to get to plant them today. And then
Oh,
it didn't get to. And then I did plant 2 tomato plants that were given to me. I have a ton more, so I left those 2 down there because they were larger, and so I just left them down there. But yeah, I ended up hauling all my plants back and just putting them in our Polaris Ranger, and I've just pulled it all into the barn so that because the barn is really well insulated. It has that spray foam insulation and it stays toasty warm in there. So
nice.
we're just gonna do that. That way I'm not hauling them back in the house and putting them under the lights again and everything. And my strawberries, I checked them. I'm posting the video tonight or tomorrow, but they survived.
Excellent.
So excited. Hopefully they'll survive tonight, but probably after my live stream, I'll go down there and cover them back up with hay at least this one more night.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt them to do that.
Oh, sure. Uh-oh. You buffered a little. Let's see. All right. So what all did you plant in your garden, Mouse Toes?
We've got different tomatoes like Amish paste, Romas, because I like them for canning, a couple big
Uh-huh.
boys. We don't do carrots because carrots are so cheap to get at a farmer's market. You got to plant a whole bunch of carrots, right? We've only got, what,
Yeah.
3, 6, 9, 12 rows. My asparagus patch is there, but it doesn't produce a lot of asparagus like it should. So we might just dig that out because that takes up a whole row. And then, of course, squash. Got to have crookneck squash, cantaloupe, watermelon, and a new neighbor in our neighborhood is keeping bees. So maybe this year I won't have to self-pollinate my squash. But so I
Oh.
put coneflowers this year that bees really like. So I'm hoping that'll bring some bees.
Ooh, yeah, I've got a bunch of wildflower seed and stuff that I'm gonna seed in a few buckets down there. Some for
Mhm.
bees, hummingbirds, and stuff like that. So
Yep.
I'm gonna plant those, and then I'm also going to put a mason bee hive down there. So that because mason bees are awesome, they don't really sting you or anything, but they still pollinate and they do the work. So, but I don't know
Oh,
how well
wow.
that'll go because the hornets are bad around here, so I don't know if the mason bees will last, but we're gonna give it a try. So we'll see.
Oh, Hawaii volcano took out the pheasant that ate his lemon sprout.
Did you eat him?
Yes. Hawaii,
Pheasant's good. Did you eat him?
did you chow down? Or no, he said he reluctantly used his wings.
Cornered him against the fence, so he reluctantly. Oh, so he flew away.
Mm.
There was one time when we lived in Nebraska for a short period of time, um, and there was a pheasant like out there stuck on our fence, and Joe was gonna shoot it, and I was like, no. I was like more tenderhearted than I was like, no, that's not fair. That's not a stand up way to kill a pheasant. It's different if you're out hunting them, but when they're stuck, you can't do that. So I made him let him go. He's like, dang woman, I can't believe you.
Right. Are you
Oh
gonna
my.
grow? Of course, I'm going to grow beans. You gonna grow green beans, oily
Yeah,
because they're so great to can.
yeah, I'm gonna do blue lake green beans and one other kind of bean. And then but mostly it's gonna be I'm growing my salads in herbs inside, um, because it gets so hot outside, the salad will wither
Mm-hmm.
pretty quickly here. So I'm just going to grow them inside under the lights, and then and my herbs, and then I've got a raspberry bush that's self-pollinating that I've got in the house now. I'm going to put it out on the porch, but when it starts getting like really hot, I'm going to keep it to where I can bring it in. But it's already got
Nice.
raspberries all over it, but they're just not sweetening up yet. So, but yeah, I'm excited about berries. And then I planted 4 berry plants down there. I don't know which ones will work good here or not, but it's just an experiment. And my elderberries are taking off like crazy up in my yard, so they're so invasive. So we may take starts off of these and put them down there, um, and then just go ahead and uh, take these out up here, um, or because they just root and they just spread so fast in our area. So,
Right.
but I don't know. We'll see. We'll just keep an eye on them. But if they start getting too invasive, then they're going to have to go. But
Yes.
I'm doing a pumpkin blend, and I'm doing the little pumpkins too, because Chelsea and Zane like those for in the fall. And then I'm doing cantaloupe, several kinds of watermelon, lots of different kind of cucumbers, and doing I've got a little bit of most everything that Burpee puts out there. We'll just put it this way, at least one envelope of everything, but I probably won't necessarily plant everything. We'll just have to see. Lots of
Yes.
tomatoes, because we go through a lot. Green beans and tomatoes are the two things that we go through the most, the absolute
Hmm.
most, as far as our vegetables, and then in salad. So those are the things that I'm most, and I just love fresh, like watermelon and cantaloupe and stuff like that. So yeah, I've got like 3 different variety of watermelon. I've only got 1 or 2 variety of cantaloupe. I don't know. This is my first year growing in this plot, so I have no idea what's going to take off, what's not, what's going to be better in a container, what isn't,
But at
what's
least you're
better in the
trying.
ground. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So I found out that so I was talking to my husband and I was like, when we go to town, I need to go into Walmart and see if they have any canning jars and lids and stuff. And he's like, why? And I was like, because there's like a shortage. It's really hard to find them. And I said, so I want to start buying when I see it so that I'll have enough whenever the garden starts coming in to start putting things back. And he goes, well, I wish I'd have known that because Dad and I, when we tore down that one old house, we buried probably 1,000 jars. I
No.
Yeah, I about fell over dead. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because I had told him, and he's got the man ears. Sometimes he just don't hear what is said. Because I had mentioned it several times before. So I was like, "Babe, that was like thousands of dollars worth of jars. You have no idea. That was thousands of dollars worth of jars." And night BC. So I told him. He said, "Well, come to think of it, I'll ask Dad, but Granny's old house, the seller she may have some of her jars down there. They're, Granny's passed away about 10 years back, but they lease out the home place, which was hers, but it's got a cellar, and so they went and checked, and sure enough, there was canning jars down there, and
Oh,
so I've got a lot of canning jars. I've got to move from there to here. We'll put it that way. I've already got 5 boxes of canning jars, and that barely covered one little shelf and a portion of another one.
that's
So,
fantastic.
yeah, there's wide mouth, there's narrow mouth, there's quarts, there's pints, there's even a couple of gallon things for like if I was pickling something or whatever. So
Hmm.
I'm so happy. And
Yes.
bonus, I got a her old enamel water bath canner and the enamel rectangular like bowl kind of a tub thing to where you can cut up your apples or whatever it is and put it in there and as
Yes.
you're processing. Ah!
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so excited. So excited, let me tell you. All right. Well, let's see. Well, that's good, Hawaii. You see plenty of bees around your place. Yeah, mason bees are definitely different than a honeybee, but they're really beneficial and they don't sting you. So, yay. Hey, Harvey. Good to see ya. Well, guys, we're at the hour mark, and I know Mouse Toes has stuff to do. If you guys aren't sub to her, go check her out. Mouse Toes channel. Just look it up like that. She does canning. That's how I learned to all of the safety and all of that on canning in my pressure canner. So go check her out. She does lots of videos, especially on food preservation and on garden. She shows about her gardening, and she's amazing fisher lady, and she just gets in her canoe and goes out there and catches them.
You just got to
Green
do
beans.
whatever you can. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mouse Toes, any tips on the green beans?
Green beans, striped green beans are fabulous to grow. I grew them for the first time 2 years ago. They're stringless. I don't like canning green beans that are stringy because the string becomes super prominent when you can, and it's like dental floss. So
What's your favorite? Oh, go ahead. I'm
Clemson,
sorry.
Clemson spineless is what I like to grow because it's a bush as opposed to a climber.
Okay, I've got some bush beans and I've got some climber beans both. So that's good to
Nice.
know. So the bush
Hmm.
beans should be okay, right? I think that is
Yes.
what I have is some Clemsons.
Hmm. And when I
Uh,
can my green beans, I put onion in it for some flavor in that water.
oh, okay. Okay. Is there any flavoring that would be off-putting in the green beans? Like,
I put no spices because anything you put it can become accentuated in the canning process. So I'm going to add my spices after I open that jar to anything, whether it's ground beef or chicken. So I'm not limited to what's in it.
okay. Trying to see. There was something else I saw. Oh, okay. Hawaii said that you do cooking too. She does cooking from her preps videos,
Hmm.
which I love. So, and matter of fact, I have got to get um going through her videos because I need some inspiration, people. I need some ideas and inspiration, and Mouse Toes always seems to give that to me. So I'm happy to do that. Let's see.
It's hard to come
Um,
up with new things every week to cook, and doing it within a budget too. And I thought it's great to have stuff on your shelf in a jar, but how do you make that into a well-balanced meal of, a
right,
starch, a vegetable, a meat? So that's what I
right.
just try to do. But I'm just a nerdy channel. I mean, I just use my cell phone. My lighting sucks, but it's food. It's cooking.
That's right. I mean that's me too. I don't have a fancy camera. I use my cell phone. I
Hmm.
have a tripod that doesn't want to keep the camera straight, so it kind of tilts. Because if I have the phone in there centered, it hits the buttons that it
Hmm.
keeps starting and stopping recording, starting and so I have to put it off center, which makes the thing tilt because I can't
Hmm.
get it to stay. But you know what? At least I'm sharing, and maybe somebody will
Yes.
learn something. Just like tonight, we're fixing to close out, but just like tonight, um, even if it helps save one person's life, that's the main thing.
Hmm.
Help save somebody money, gave them an idea that helped save their life, help save them from gangrene or something by wearing their tennis shoes instead of flip flops to the cellar. Plus, those flip
Yes.
flops are slippery whenever you're going to the cellar or somewhere and you're walking on wet ground or pavement.
Hmm.
So all of those things, you know,
What that
that's
should be common sense, but aren't. Hmm.
yeah. So that's what we're all here for, is to work together and fill in the gaps that maybe somebody else didn't think of. That's
Hmm.
why even if somebody's talking on a subject that I think I know a lot about, it never fails to always learn something from them.
Yes.
So um, that's why we gotta band together.
Hmm.
We become complete when we do, just like the Bible says, the body of Christ. It
Yes.
all works together. So All right. Well, guys, thank you guys so much for coming. Mouse Toes, hang out for just a minute before when I
Okay.
stop. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate each of you. Mouse Toes, thank you so much for being my co-host, and thank you to you and all of the rest of the moderators. I appreciate it very much. Love y'all. And guys, God bless. And just remember to prep for it. Prep for it all. Okay, guys? Bye.